Hi and welcome to today's episode of Blessed and Adored. With current events and daily life, it can be hard to stay positive. Are you struggling to feel thankful this season? You're not alone. Join us as we explore how to find moments of gratitude even while battling anxiety and depression. Through biblical examples and practical tools, discover how to connect with God during difficult times. If you would like to continue a deeper study of living the Christian life as God intended, be sure to visit Amazon.com for your copy of Ellen Houston's book, Graceful Courage. Graceful Courage is a topical devotional that explores how to apply God's Word to everyday living. It's where the Word meets real life. Now, let's join our host for today's podcast.
November can be, well, a tough month when it comes to gratitude. You know, it feels like we're surrounded by all these messages telling us to be thankful.
Right.
But if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, that can feel pretty overwhelming, actually.
I can imagine.
So this deep dive is really for anyone who's, finding it hard to embrace that whole gratitude thing right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point.
Last year, I remember I was feeling really stuck with anxiety around Thanksgiving, actually. And the whole idea of gratitude just felt like impossible. Like almost like trying to run a marathon with like a piano strapped to my back.
Wow, I like that analogy. It's a very vivid image.
It was heavy.
Yeah, that feeling of being weighed down, it's more common than you might think.
Right.
Even among people of faith. Studies actually show that 1 in 4 Christians report struggling with anxiety or depression.
It's interesting because I think we often forget that these feelings aren't new. Even, major figures in the Bible experience them. Like take Psalm 13, for example.
Okay.
Written by David, the king of Israel.
Right.
He cries out, "How long, O Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?"
Wow.
And those words, to me, just feel so raw and real. Like a textbook case of anxiety and despair,
Absolutely. David's words, they really do remind us that these struggles, they're part of the human experience.
Right.
Even for someone who is known for his deep devotion to God.
Exactly.
And it's a pattern. We see throughout Scripture, really.
Okay.
Think of the prophet Elijah.
Mm-hmm.
He experiences this incredible spiritual victory on Mount Carmel, defeating, the prophets of Baal.
Mm-hmm.
But yet immediately afterward, he plunges into despair.
Wow.
Even wishing for death.
That contrast is striking. He goes from this mountaintop experience to this deep valley of despair. And what's so fascinating to me is God's response. He doesn't, scold Elijah for these feelings.
Right.
He sends an angel with food and just allows him to rest.
It's such a powerful image of grace, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
God's response really reflects a profound truth about his character. Psalm 34.18 tells us, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit."
Wow.
God, he doesn't turn away from our pain.
Yeah.
He draws near to us, offering, comfort and support.
That's a beautiful thought.
And, this brings up an important question. If even the most faithful individuals experience these struggles, how do we find gratitude when those difficult emotions feel so overwhelming?
That's a really good question. I think Philippians 4.67, it offers a really powerful suggestion.
Okay.
It encourages us to bring, both our requests and our thanksgiving to God.
So it's like a both hand.
It's a both hand. It doesn't say we have to ignore our struggles, pretend that everything's fine. It's more about an honest conversation where we can acknowledge our pain while still recognizing God's presence.
I like that. It's like saying, God, I'm hurting right now, but I'm also thankful for.
Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit? How might someone actually phrase an even though prayer?
Yeah, so imagine you're feeling overwhelmed by anxiety about, let's say, an upcoming event.
Yeah.
You could say something like, "Even though I feel anxious about this presentation, God, I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my work. Even though I'm afraid of making a mistake, I'm thankful for your presence with me."
So it's about acknowledging that negative feeling, but still finding something, even something small, to be thankful for in that same situation.
Exactly. It's about holding those two realities together.
Right.
And that allows us to be honest with God about what we're going through while still inviting him into the situation.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. It's not about denying the reality of our struggle.
Yeah.
It's about choosing to see God's presence and faithfulness even in the midst of it.
Right. And recognizing that gratitude is not like a feeling we have to force. It's a practice we can cultivate, even when it feels difficult.
Yeah. This, even though prayer feels like a really great starting point.
I agree.
So for anyone listening who's feeling that weight of anxiety or depression, remember, you are not alone.
And it doesn't mean your faith is weak.
Exactly.
God is with you, even in the storm.
And these struggles, they don't disqualify anyone from God's love.
It's important to remember that the Bible is full of examples of, people considered heroes of faith who experienced moments of doubt, despair, and anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really normalizes the experience.
Yeah.
And reminds us that we're not failing God when we struggle.
Yeah, it's like looking at the lives of these, biblical figures and seeing ourselves reflected in their stories almost.
Mm-hmm.
Their struggles become our struggles, and their triumphs become our hope.
That's powerful.
It's a beautiful reminder that we are part of a much larger story.
Yeah.
A story of redemption and grace.
That's a beautiful way to put it. We are part of a larger narrative where our imperfections and struggles don't define us.
Right.
They become part of our journey toward wholeness and healing.
This reminds me of something you mentioned earlier, the idea that gratitude isn't about denying our pain or forcing ourselves to feel something we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on that a little more?
Absolutely. True gratitude is about finding those glimmers of hope.
Yeah.
Recognizing God's presence, even in the midst of challenging circumstances. Yeah. And sometimes those glimmers are tiny, like the widow's mite that Jesus observed in the temple.
Right.
It was a small offering, but it represented great sacrifice and faith.
That's a great example. It's about recognizing the significance of those small acts of faith and love,
Yeah.
It's about appreciating the small things.
The everyday graces we might otherwise overlook.
Yeah.
We call this micro-gratitude. It's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we do have, even if it seems insignificant. It could be a warm cup of coffee, a sunny day, a kind word from a friend.
Yeah.
These seemingly small things can become really powerful reminders of God's goodness.
This idea of micro-gratitude is really resonating with me.
Yeah.
It feels much more attainable than this, pressure to find, big sweeping reasons to be thankful, especially when you're just trying to get through the day.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that gratitude doesn't have to be, grand or dramatic.
Yeah.
It can be found in the ordinary moments of our lives.
Right.
It's about noticing and appreciating the little things that bring us joy and peace.
Okay, so we've established that struggling with anxiety and depression, it's a common experience even for, people of faith. We've explored some biblical examples of individuals who faced similar challenges and found their way back to hope.
Right.
And we've started to unpack this idea of micro-gratitude. So where do we go from here? How do we actually start putting this into practice?
Well, one practical tool that can be really helpful is what we call the even though prayer method.
Okay, could you remind us what the even though prayer method is and how it works?
Yeah, sure. It's a way of acknowledging our, difficult feelings while simultaneously expressing gratitude.
Okay.
It's a way of saying, God, I'm struggling with this, but I'm also thankful for...
So, for example, if I'm feeling overwhelmed by anxiety, I could say something like, even though I feel anxious right now, God, I'm grateful for the support of my family and friends.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or you could say, even though I feel depressed and hopeless, God, I'm thankful for your unfailing love and for the promise of a new day.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's a way of being honest with God about what we're going through, but also looking for those points of light, even in the darkness.
Yeah.
It's like saying, I see you, God, even in this.
That's a great way to put it. It's about inviting God into our struggles and allowing him to bring us, comfort and peace.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we don't have to, pretend to be strong or have it all together. We can come to God just as we are with all our messy emotions.
So instead of trying to force ourselves to feel thankful for things that feel overwhelming right now, we can start by simply acknowledging our struggles.
Right.
And then looking for those tiny sparks of gratitude.
Those micro moments of grace.
Yeah.
That's a great summary. It's about taking the pressure off and meeting ourselves where we are.
Right.
Remember, God isn't looking for perfection.
Yeah.
He's looking for our hearts.
So we've got this even though prayer as a starting point for cultivating microgratitude. What other tools or practices would you recommend?
Well, another helpful practice is keeping a God's faithfulness journal. And this isn't about, listing every single thing you're thankful for, but rather recording specific instances where you've experienced God's faithfulness in your life.
Okay.
Even in small, seemingly insignificant ways.
So like a running log of those micro moments of grace.
Exactly.
Okay, so like God helped me find my keys this morning, or I got a good parking spot even though the lot was crowded.
Exactly. The key is to intentionally notice those moments and record them.
Yep.
It could be something as simple as, receiving an encouraging text from a friend when you were feeling down, or finding a parking spot when you were running late.
Yeah.
The key is to be intentional.
I can see how this would be incredibly helpful, especially when those like negative thoughts start creeping in. It's like having this tangible reminder that God is at work, even when we don't feel it.
Right. It helps us shift our perspective from what's going wrong to what's going right. And over time, you'll begin to see these patterns of God's faithfulness in your life.
Right.
Which can be incredibly encouraging, especially during, difficult times.
Yeah.
It reinforces the idea that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And that God is actively involved in our lives.
This journal feels like a really powerful tool for combating those feelings of isolation and despair that can accompany anxiety and depression.
Absolutely. It's about retraining our minds to focus on the positive and to recognize God's presence even in the midst of our struggles.
Yeah.
It's a way of actively choosing gratitude even when it feels difficult.
So far, we have the Even Though Prayer and the God's Faithfulness Journal as tools for cultivating this sense of micro-gratitude. What other practices would you recommend?
There's one more practice I find particularly beneficial.
Okay.
Especially when, you're feeling overwhelmed by anxiety or stress and you're just really struggling to connect with gratitude on a deeper level. It's called the 5 Senses Gratitude Practice.
Okay. This sounds intriguing. Could you walk us through how this practice works?
It's actually, it's remarkably simple.
Okay.
You just pause for a few moments, right? And you intentionally engage each of your 5 senses.
Okay.
Sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch.
Okay.
For each sense, you identify something specific that you're grateful for in that moment.
So, for instance, with sight, I might express gratitude for the vibrant colors of the fall leaves outside my window.
Exactly.
For sound, I might appreciate the laughter of my children playing.
Precisely. The possibilities are, they're endless, really.
Right.
Perhaps you savor the aroma of your morning coffee. For smell, appreciate a delicious meal for taste. And find comfort in the feeling of a warm blanket or a hug from a loved one for touch.
This practice feels so grounding.
Yeah.
It's like a mini meditation almost that gently guides us back to the present moment, helping us appreciate the good things that are already surrounding us.
It is. It's a wonderful technique for grounding yourself when that anxiety or, overwhelm threatens to kind of take over.
Yeah.
By focusing on your senses, you redirect your attention away from, all those worries and toward something positive, tangible.
And what's great is it's accessible anytime, anywhere,
Right.
You don't need any special equipment or a large chunk of time. You could even practice it while washing the dishes or waiting in line at the grocery store.
Precisely. It's about discovering those little pockets of peace and gratitude throughout your day.
Yeah.
It's about training your mind to seek out the good, even when, you're facing challenges.
So now we have three powerful tools in our micro-gratitude toolkit: the Even Though Prayer, the God's Faithfulness Journal, and the 5 Senses Gratitude Practice. These all seem like fantastic starting points for anyone feeling kind of trapped in negativity or overwhelm.
Absolutely. And remember, the key is to be patient with yourself. Cultivating gratitude. It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There will be days when it feels, easy and natural.
Yeah.
And there will be days when it feels nearly impossible.
Right.
The essential thing is to just keep practicing, keep showing up, and keep trusting that God is with you every step of the way.
That's a comforting thought. It's not about striving for perfection, but rather embracing the process of growth and change,
Right.
Small steps, one day at a time.
Precisely. And even on those days when you don't feel particularly grateful, just remember that you can still choose to be thankful for God's grace and mercy.
Yeah.
You can be thankful that He never gives up on you, even when you feel like giving up on yourself.
That's such a powerful reminder. You know, sometimes the most challenging part about gratitude, at least for me, is that it can feel like a performance, especially during the holidays.
Yeah, I get that.
There's this like pressure to put on a happy face and pretend that everything is perfect.
I think that that's a very real struggle many people face, actually.
Yeah.
It's like we're expected to have this, this overflowing basket of thankfulness, even if we feel empty inside.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to distinguish between, genuine gratitude
Right.
and what we call toxic positivity.
Okay. Could you explain the difference between the two? Like, what exactly is toxic positivity?
Yeah, so toxic positivity is, it's an idea that you should always be, happy and positive, regardless of what's happening in your life. It's this forced cheerfulness that denies or minimizes negative emotions.
So it's like putting on a mask and pretending everything's fine, even when it's not.
Precisely. And it could be quite harmful.
Yeah.
Because it invalidates your true feelings.
Yeah.
And it prevents you from, processing them in a healthy way.
So how does genuine gratitude differ from this toxic positivity?
Well, genuine gratitude involves recognizing the good things in your life, right? Even when you're facing, difficulties. It's about acknowledging both big and small blessings. But it doesn't require ignoring or denying the challenging things that you're experiencing.
So it's about embracing the full spectrum of our human experience,
Yeah, exactly. It's about acknowledging the full spectrum of our human experience.
The joys and the sorrows.
The joys and the sorrows, the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
And it's about, consciously choosing to focus on the good, even when it's hard to see.
That makes a lot of sense. It aligns with the idea that it's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely. Sometimes the most genuine expression of gratitude involves, simply acknowledging that you're struggling.
Yeah.
It's like saying, God, I'm hurting right now. I don't feel particularly grateful, but I'm thankful that you're here with me.
What a powerful way to frame that. It's like saying, I see you, God, even in my pain.
Precisely. I believe that's where true transformation happens.
Yeah.
When we allow ourselves to be, vulnerable with God and with each other.
So when we're feeling pressured to perform gratitude, especially during the holiday season, how can we move away from that and embrace a more authentic experience?
Well, a helpful starting point is simply to become aware of how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Are you feeling pressured to be happy?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you need to, put on a show for others?
So the first step is to check in with ourselves and see what's really going on beneath the surface.
Exactly. If you notice those feelings of pressure or inauthenticity, give yourself permission to step back.
Yeah.
And create some space for yourself.
What do you mean by creating space? Could you give some examples?
Yeah. So it could involve taking a few minutes to be alone and quiet, to breathe deeply and center yourself.
Yeah.
It could mean declining social gatherings that feel, overwhelming.
Right.
Or setting boundaries with family members who are pressuring you to be more cheerful than you genuinely feel.
So it's about prioritizing our mental and emotional well-being, even if it means going against the grain of holiday expectations,
Precisely. It's about honoring your own needs and respecting your own limits.
Right.
And it's about, remembering that you don't have to perform gratitude for anyone.
Yeah.
You can simply be yourself, just as you are with all your imperfections and complexities.
That's a liberating thought. It's a reminder that authenticity is more valuable than any performance.
Absolutely. It's in those moments of authenticity that we truly connect, with God and with each other.
We've discussed the pressure to perform gratitude and how to move towards a more authentic experience.
Yeah.
What other insights do you have for our listeners about finding gratitude amidst life's storms?
Well, it's essential to remember that gratitude, it's not a one-time event. It's a practice, a way of life.
Right.
It's about cultivating a grateful heart.
Okay.
A heart that is open to receiving and appreciating the good things in life, even when things are difficult.
So it's not about finding a magical gratitude switch we can just like flip on.
Exactly. It's about making a conscious choice day after day.
Yeah.
Focus on the good.
Yeah.
To notice the blessings and to cultivate an attitude of thankfulness.
And we should anticipate that some days this will be easier than others.
Of course. There will be days when, gratitude flows effortlessly.
Right.
And days when it feels like, like an enormous effort.
Yeah.
That's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
The important thing is to keep practicing.
Right.
To keep showing up.
Yeah.
And to keep trusting that God is with you, every step of the way.
It's about consistency, not perfection. It's about embracing the process.
Right.
Not striving for some unattainable ideal.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And remember, God, He isn't looking for, perfection.
Right.
He's looking for your heart.
Yeah.
He's looking for your willingness to turn toward Him, even when, you're feeling lost and alone.
So even on the days when we don't feel particularly grateful, we can still choose to turn towards God and say, thank you for your presence. Thank you for your love. Thank you for never giving up on me.
Yes. And sometimes those simple words of gratitude are the most powerful prayers we can offer.
We've covered a lot of ground so far. We've explored the difference between gratitude and toxic positivity, the importance of authenticity, the practice of expressing gratitude outwardly, and the power of cultivating a grateful heart from the inside out. What else do we need to discuss in our final segment?
I think it would be beneficial to explore the biblical basis for gratitude.
Okay.
And how it can provide, strength and guidance, especially during challenging times.
That sounds like a great way to wrap up this conversation.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that in our next segment.
Yeah.
We've spent quite a bit of time now, exploring those practical aspects of gratitude, the tools, and the mindset.
Right.
But now I kind of want to, delve into the foundation of this whole concept within our faith.
Okay.
Where does gratitude fit into that, bigger picture?
Yeah.
Especially when we're facing, difficult times.
It's really fascinating to consider that gratitude is woven throughout the Bible.
Yeah. Right.
It's not just a pleasant suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a command.
Okay.
Like 1 Thessalonians 5:18, it says, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus."
That phrase, "in all circumstances," it feels pretty challenging.
Right.
Particularly when we're right in the middle of a storm,
Right.
It's easy to be grateful when things are going well.
Yeah.
But what about when life feels kind of overwhelming?
Yeah. It is a tall order. And
Okay.
it's important to understand that the verse doesn't say to give thanks for all circumstances,
Right.
but rather in all circumstances.
Okay.
And that distinction is crucial.
So it's not about pretending that that bad things are good.
Right.
It's about finding something to be thankful for, even when things are tough.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that even in the midst of our pain, God is still, present and actively working.
It's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we do have.
Yeah.
Even if it seems small. Sometimes when anxiety or depression hit, it's hard to see past the current struggle. How can we trust in a bigger plan when we can barely make it through the next hour?
I think that's a very very real struggle, and it's precisely why gratitude is so important. It helps us shift our perspective to see things from a different angle,
Right.
reminding us that even amidst the darkness there are glimmers of light.
That brings us back to those micro moments of gratitude we discussed earlier.
Exactly. Those seemingly small moments,
Yeah.
they can be really powerful reminders of God's goodness and faithfulness,
Mm-hmm.
even when we're feeling lost and alone.
Yeah.
They offer us a tangible way to connect with gratitude, even when it feels elusive.
So if someone is struggling to find those glimmers of light, where should they begin? How can we connect with gratitude on a deeper, more spiritual level?
One powerful way is to intentionally meditate on God's character.
Okay.
Just take some time to reflect on who He is, what He's done, and the promises He's made.
How does meditating on God's character cultivate gratitude?
Well, when we take the time to reflect on God's attributes, His love, His mercy, His grace, His power, His faithfulness,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard not to feel this this sense of awe and wonder,
It's like rekindling those reasons why we were, drawn to him in the first place.
Exactly. And when we focus on God's goodness, it becomes easier to see the good in our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
It shifts our our perspective from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance.
It sounds like gratitude kind of flows naturally from a deep love for God.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
The more we immerse ourselves in the richness of God's character,
the more grateful we become.
Meditating on God's character is a powerful practice.
Yeah.
Are there other ways to connect with gratitude through Scripture?
Another practice I encourage is immersing ourselves in the Psalms.
Okay.
Yeah.
What makes the Psalms particularly relevant to the practice of gratitude?
Well, the Psalms, they really captured the raw, unfiltered emotions of the human experience, both positive and negative.
Right.
They give voice to joy, to sorrow, anger, fear, doubt, and yes, even gratitude.
It's like reading a journal almost.
Yeah.
Of someone else's faith journey,
Mm-hmm.
with all its highs and lows. We get a glimpse into the struggles and triumphs of those who came before us.
Right, and reading and reflecting on the Psalms, it reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. People have wrestled with these same emotions, for centuries. And importantly, we see how they ultimately found their way back to gratitude and hope.
Yeah, many of the Psalms they begin with lament, with cries of pain and despair directed toward God.
Mm-hmm.
But they often conclude with expressions of praise and thanksgiving, demonstrating this renewed sense of hope and trust in God.
It's almost like a guidebook for navigating our own emotional landscapes, offering comfort and direction.
Yeah, the Psalms, they really teach us that it's okay to be honest with God about our feelings, to express our doubts and fears openly.
Mm.
But they also remind us that even in those darkest times, God is present, working for our good.
And that is something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
No matter what our circumstances.
Absolutely. Gratitude is not about denying the reality of our pain. It's about choosing to focus on the light, even when we're surrounded by darkness. Yeah. It's about clinging to hope, even when despair threatens to consume us.
So we have meditating on God's character and immersing ourselves in the Psalms. Are there any other biblical practices that you recommend for cultivating gratitude?
One more that I believe is foundational to a grateful heart is remembering what God has already done for us.
What do you mean by remembering what God has done?
It involves taking time to intentionally reflect on all the ways God has, blessed us, both in the past and present.
So it's like that God's faithfulness journal we talked about earlier, but on a larger scale.
Yes, it's about acknowledging God's faithfulness throughout our entire lives. It's remembering all the times, He has answered our prayers, provided for our needs, protected us from harm, and guided us through difficult situations.
And when we do that, when we intentionally remember God's faithfulness, it naturally leads to a heart filled with gratitude.
Exactly. It reminds us that we're not alone on this journey.
Yeah.
God has been with us every step of the way.
Right.
And He won't abandon us now.
And that is a truth worth celebrating.
Yeah.
Even when life throws storms our way.
Yes. Gratitude is, it's not just a feeling. It's a choice.
Right.
It's a choice to focus on the good.
Yeah.
To trust in God's goodness and to celebrate His faithfulness, in every season of life.
So even when we feel weighed down by anxiety or depression, we can choose to cultivate a grateful heart. We can choose to remember God's love, mercy, and faithfulness.
Absolutely. When we shift our focus from what we lack to what we have, from our anxieties to God's steadfast love, we open ourselves to a deeper experience of His grace and peace.
Thank you for sharing these insights with us today.
Of course.
It's been a really enriching conversation.
My pleasure. And just remember, gratitude, it's not a destination, but a a journey,
Right.
Some days will be easier than others, but God's grace is always there to meet us.
Yeah.
No matter where we are on the path.
And to our listeners, remember that you are not alone. God is with you in the storm. Even in the darkest of times, there's always something to be grateful for. His mercies are new every morning, and for that, we can always give thanks.
Thank you for joining us today. We do appreciate you. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our channel. Be sure to join us next time where we discuss the Word meets real life. Take care.